Hey, everybody.
Hey,
That
Fab,
was an
I'm not
interesting
sure
intro.
what happened
I
there,
totally
but
screwed up.
hopefully.
For anybody watching on YouTube, that was a screw up on my end, but so be it. This is how the world works. We don't do any post production, so here we go.
That should be the new name of our podcast. We don't do post production.
No post production required.
Anti-post.
Um,
Anti-post.
yeah. All right. So I guess maybe we could find a good segue to the topic today, which is AI, and AI would maybe not make me screw up if I had a process written down by AI. I don't know. But Alyssa, you proposed AI for sales, and we kind of We started talking offline right before this, and we started talking about it. So we figured we'd just hit record, which is why I wasn't ready to actually launch the intro. All right, AI for sales. How do we want to get started on this one?
Well, I look. You both said amazing stuff. So first thing I'd say is I'd love to hear Fab how you use it for LinkedIn, and I want to hear Alyssa too on how she uses it, and then I'll tell you guys how I use it, and maybe let's start with ChatGPT, and then we can talk about other stuff. So I don't know, Fab. I love what you're saying about LinkedIn. So I don't know if I could take what you
Yeah,
said when we pre-recorded and say it again. I think it's brilliant.
yeah. I think before we get into the tips and tricks and hidden gems, I think I would like to just say that AI is kind of here to stay. And I went to HubSpot's inbound conference uh, back in September, and they had some AI experts there, and it's by analyzing patents and all that, it's clear that it's staying and seems to be getting towards a personal AI assistant. So I think learning how to be familiar with AI, even if it's not immediately going to help you close a deal, because we're talking about salespeople, I think it's really important to set some time and to use it, and to live the frustration of learning how to use a new, because ultimately it's a tool. And it took me, I'm paying for the HubSpot does have a lot of AI tools, which we can dive into if you guys want to. But I do use the paid version of ChatGPT. But my favorite AI tool right now is actually Bing. It's amazing. It's so much better. I know now ChatGPT gets to pull information online as well, but the challenge before was that all the information was dated. Um, so Bing's ChatGPT is great because it actually pulls information online, and you can get really great information, like persona information. And what I like about it is that it actually gives you the sources, so you can actually go double check like where it got that information from, which ChatGPT doesn't do. So if you want, so that, to me, those are my two big tools. Well, three with HubSpot ones, but HubSpots are very HubSpot
Fab,
specific.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you say you're using the
Yep.
paid version or you're not using the paid version of Chat?
I am.
You are.
I am. Because the free version only allows you to use ChatGPT 3, which is a little limited, I found. And I was like, whatever, it's $20 a month. I'm like, there's tools that I pay that are way more than that. So yeah, so those are my three main tools. This is HubSpots for the HubSpot work. ChatGPT I use for writing stuff, which we can get into because Paul got really excited offline. And Bing I use for research. If I'm researching like how to build a sales pipeline, or what are the concerns of sales leaders right now, and can you cite sources and all, like the Bing one is amazing for market research. It's phenomenal. It really is. So those are the
Did
three
you pay for the
tools that
Bing
I use.
version as well?
No, that one's free. Just go to Bing, and it's also available on your phone, so you can do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Alyssa, let's hear you on how you
Yep.
use it.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I wanted to caveat with the use of AI is that, and it's getting better, but for a while there wasn't, especially more for marketing, but also to some degree in sales, where ChatGPT was using, or AI was being used to write content, but the content was really boring. So I think there needs to be a bit of, or look like a Wikipedia page that just got copied and pasted into a newsletter or a post. And I think there's a level of pre-work that needs to be done in terms of your sales strategy, understanding who your target prospect is, understanding your main positioning and what you're about. So that initial work needs to be done to make your searches in AI more effective, so you're getting high quality writing coming out of it. And I've seen it a few times with clients who put junior people on building any kind of owned content, let's say, or even building a sales deck or building some sales call messaging. And it all sounded like kind of a robot or a Wikipedia page. And no one wants to read that. So I think there's a level of nuance now in your ability to search effectively and to program the AI, your AI friend, with the right messaging to have them pump out the most appropriate things. I always say thank you to my AI too. Like,
so Canadian. That's amazing.
I'm not joking. Like there is an element of spiritual essence in AI, and it's only getting bigger. And so I feel the need to appreciate it.
You're just afraid AI is going to turn your electricity off and like turn your heating off eventually. You're saying, okay, I better be nice.
He did not say thank you. He will pay now.
I don't want to experience it or the risk of it just in case. And they're always very nice in response. I always get a nice like, you're so welcome. Good luck with your endeavors.
I have a question for you, Alyssa and Fab. So both of you, well, Alyssa, you alluded it to much more. You said that, it can be sort of Wikipedia boring-ish sometimes. Now, Fab and Alyssa, I'm using it too. And are you guys seeing a progression in the quality of what's coming out? Like, do you think we're going to get to a point where we won't need to prompt it as much? It'll be better at doing what we want?
Yes, for sure.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's also going to be like, because I mean, I'm old enough to have been around when like social media really took the world by storm, I guess. And especially in Canada, we kind of had the advantage of being able to see kind of what was going on in the US and kind of like learn from there. And it's the same thing, right? It's a new tool that's out there. And a lot of companies still struggle with social, but remember, like a lot of companies were just doing horrible stuff on social back then, right? There was no engagement with the community. It was all like almost PR press releases. And it was like, their ads on YouTube were just like, oh, well, here's the ad we have.
Here's a broadcast
TV,
ad.
So
we're just repurposing,
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of ChatGPT or AI. What I find interesting, the cool thing with AI is that the tech is evolving, but I think where the magic's really going to come from is as people learn how to use these tools, which is what happened with social, right? People learned how to use the tools, and it got better, and it got more expertise, and it got deeper. I think that's for sure. It's going to get better, but the tech's going to get better for sure, and probably be able to do more things and understand more things. But I think it's also humans learning how to use it better. This is like so early days, right?
Yeah.
Like most people have only learned of AI like this year, right? So I never started to use it this year, and me included. But so I think that's really where the magic is going to come from. People are going to learn how to use it.
Yeah, you learn how to use it better. I've got to say, I've been using it now for, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, maybe 6 months. And what I've got to say is that I've become a lot better at prompting it. So I think that's what we were saying that offline. Both of you guys were talking about the importance of prompting it. And you're right, Alyssa, right? You need to prompt it properly and tweak it. And even Fab's going to come out with the way he uses LinkedIn, which I can't wait for him to tell you guys this. and so what I do is I've used it to help me write some recruitment ads on Indeed. And I will say, chat, I use the free version. And I say, write me, a recruitment ad for this kind of thing. And then I keep prompting it to make it better and better and specialize it to, or personalize it to my client's needs. And I find where I've become more of a leader guiding my employee chat to write it properly. And I remember, Alyssa, you and I having this discussion like 2 years ago, and you were saying that, your job often is to help people write better. Well, now you're using it directly on chat. So I suppose you're doing the same thing on chat or on Bing or whatever AI platform you're using. When they're writing, you're helping it write better and more succinctly or for what you require. And if it's too boring, well, you're thanking it. Thank you for that version. Please give me another one. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a matter of knowing what you want out of it and being able to prompt it appropriately. So you have to kind of do that pre-work still and then be able to tweak it too. So yeah, you need the human brain kind of triggering it to make it something interesting or interesting content. And you're right, it is going to get more advanced and I think better. And you can get creative, as Fab's example, which we'll throw the mic over to him in a minute, of like, how do you get a quirky example or how do you get some character in what's being pumped out versus like a droned on Wikipedia page?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I had that problem too, and I actually like stopped using ChatGPT for a while because it was just like it was boring, right? Like it was just, and that's when I realized unconsciously, I think I only formulated it recently, is that I was trying to make it sound like me, but then I was like, well, and actually I was talking to a client. She's a sales leader, and they had to let go of her team, so she's having to go back into prospecting and stuff like that. And she was like, I haven't written like a cold email in like forever. I was like, oh, just use chat. And she's like, oh, well, it doesn't sound like me. I'm like, well, it's not meant to. Maybe eventually it'll be a personal assistant and it'll know your tone, and but right now it's not there. And that's when I realized, like, if you're trying to use chat to make it sound like you, and you can't, it's not going to know intuitively, because it has no intuition, what
Yet.
you sound like, right? Like you need to be able to find something it can leverage to guide it, right? What is the tone that you're looking for? Who is Alyssa, or who is Paul? Like, right, what does Paul sound like, right? Like by itself, it won't know. So you have to prompt it to do that. And I think that's where I had the most, that's where I've been having the most fun with it. When I found out like the voice that I wanted to use, that's what I've been having the most fun with.
And it's
Um,
funny you say that, Fab, because the person you choose to emulate or the style you choose to emulate doesn't necessarily have to be you, but it can be your I don't want to say your alter ego, but it can be your sales alter ego as to how you want to start a conversation, right?
mhm.
Like I don't necessarily want to sound like typical Paul when I'm sending out a cold email because they don't know me anyway, so it doesn't really matter if it sounds like me. What I'm trying to do is grasp at a style that will open up a conversation that I want to be part of. It's sort of like, well,
Yeah,
who would I drag in with me if I wanted to start a conversation and have it go in the right direction? Right? Am I wrong? Like, do you guys? That's the way I
yeah,
see it. So
yeah. Well, that's why, like, you know, you have different personalities, right? Like based on, if you're prospecting, you have like your prospecting hat on, and you're going to approach things differently. If you're writing like a blog post, you have your writer's mindset on, and you're going to approach things differently. And I think, as humans, we have different tones. You don't speak to your spouse or partner in the same way that you speak to your kids, or that you speak to a colleague, right? Like, and I think you're allowed to have different, or you're expected to have different tones in different
yeah,
places, right? Um, so yeah, and I think, if we're going back to the world of sales, I mean, I think it would be a great, and this hasn't been tried out, but this would be a great thing to do. Is I would work with Chat GPT or Bing or whatever, and write out different email sequences. Maybe a funny one, maybe a more like standard one, maybe a more serious, like urgency inducing one, and see which one works best. I think there's a lot of opportunities to try out, and then you could just A/B test your sequence and see which one converts better. Yeah, converts better.
I've learned that from both of you, and I use it with a lot of my clients. And both of you have said to me, do A/B tests. You don't need to know right up front the perfect answer. Just try things out. So that's thank you to both of you. I have a question for you, Alyssa. So when we wrote this title, we said using AI for sales, and I've got my opinion on it, but I want to hear you. Like I know again offline you were talking about how you're using. Could you tell us a little bit more, like tactically, how you've sort of switched into using AI, and if it's just Chat and Bing, or if you're using other AI tools?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for me, and when I work with clients, the heart of sales comes from strategically knowing your buyer's intent, or your customer or your client, whoever it might be, their intent. What matters to them, what's important to them, where their head's at. And I think circling back to market research with AI, it's getting even more and more advanced in its ability, especially as Frab mentions, being able to get online real time information more effectively, is you can use it for customer research to a huge degree, especially from a sales perspective. As one example, often it ends up being a crapshoot for new direct to consumer packaged goods brands, right? You're a small packaged goods brand, you're making granola bars, you're making whatever, and you really want to get in a shelf at Loblaws or Sobeys or Walmart. You have no connections there. You've never engaged with a Walmart buyer before. You kind of have a sense of what the company's about, but you sort of don't. I think AI and advanced AI, and the more advanced we get with it, will be able to give us insights to whatever is publicly available out there in the world about these organizations. And being a publicly traded large organization, there's a lot of information out there, right? You can get their annual report, you can get their, I don't know what else is out there, but there's a lot of stuff out there in the world about that organization that you can then build into your sales decks. You can build into your sales call. Often it's about, here's my great product. Here's why you should have it on your shelf. It's no, we know that sustainability is a priority for you guys this year. We know based on your annual report last year that you were low and decreased in your sustainability metrics. You didn't meet your targets. Guess what? Our new product will help you get there. So there's so much market research that AI can help you with as you go into sales encounters that will set you up for success. And that's just, one example of probably bajillions. But
Yeah, that's really really cool. Yeah, it's interesting because like you're both saying these things, and I'm like, yeah, of course, it makes sense. But sometimes you just need someone to help you push it in the right direction, right? So one thing I want to ask you, Alyssa and Fab, is how's your business changed? And we'll start with Alyssa. How's your business changed because of AI? Like obviously you're using it, but how have you readjusted how have you integrated AI to change the way you do your actual business? Or has
you want
it?
to go first, Fab? I don't know if it's changed mine that much. So it's changed me in terms of how I do my own business personally. Because I use AI to write a lot, because
Yeah.
copywriting is a pain. And I found it too for my clients. I didn't do copywriting. That wasn't part of what I would do. But now it makes it easier for them to take the concepts and the maybe plan that we've created and actually execute it thanks to AI. Because before they didn't have the capacity to write or the ability to write well. And now they can put, junior team members on with a lot of good insights about their brand and actually pump out something that's decent owned content that will serve them well from a lead generating initiative. So that's where I found it's been of real value for my clients, and makes me feel like I'm not throwing them to the wolves as much and saying like, no, you have support. There's support out there for you to get this done. So go do it.
Yeah.
I guess it accelerates. What you're saying is it accelerates the process, right? There's less procrastination in essence.
In some ways, it just makes it even doable. Like many owners and would not do that marketing work or that lead gen work because it was too much effort. Specifically from a copywriting perspective. So that's one example from a marketing perspective, but also creating sales decks and good sales material. They often struggle with what to actually write.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll agree with you. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't say like, that's why I like the social analogy again, probably because I lived through it, but it's, like I know one of the bigger pain points that companies had at the beginning is like, well, what's the ROI of this? And nobody could justify the ROI. So nobody was doing anything. And that's kind of how I'm approaching it now for myself personally. It's just I want to use it, and I'm not going to worry about whether it's making me more efficient or whatever. I just want to be able to use it and try it out. It's changed, but I will say it has changed on a few things. So on a more operational level, like I use it to like write report descriptions in HubSpot. Like I like working on building reports, but I hate writing the descriptions. So it writes it out for me. It also, there's some prompts in HubSpot where you can actually get it to create some formulas for you and all that, and some custom reports as well. So I've used some of that as well. But I think what has changed the most is my content output. So I started a client newsletter, and I leveraged ChatGPT specifically in this case, a lot to help write. I find the way I write super boring, and so I find it's been helpful for that. It just allows me to create newsletters, right? Which before I didn't have time, even though I usually do a video for them. The content, the text that goes around that, I use AI for, and I was able to send off like 2 this week, right? Which is something that I would have never been able to do.
So Fab,
beforehand.
Could you talk a little more about what you said before?
Yeah, I guess the biggest one, which Paul really liked, was
it just made me laugh. That's why I loved it. Well, let's set this up. So I said to Fab, I said, wow, Fab, I love your LinkedIn post this week. It was hilarious. It's so awesome. Funny. And then Fab said,
it's all AI generated. There's no Fab in there whatsoever. That's not true. I mean, I prompted, but that was a big thing, right? Like, I mean, as both of you know, because I've spoken to both of you about this, like creating content for me on LinkedIn has been hard because I don't like the way I write myself. My videos are stuffy. I find for LinkedIn, I'm having a hard time kind of unblocking and doing something great. And by tweaking and working my prompts, I realized, like, oh wait, I can actually write really engaging or at least fun and interesting text and comments too. So right, so if Paul, whenever you tag me in a post because you're sharing one of our podcast episodes, and before my comments used to be like, "Hey, great point, Paul," or something like that. Now, especially that I have Chat GPT on my phone and Bing as well. Even if I'm on the go, like I'll copy paste your post. I'll stick it in the prompt and say I'd like to respond something along those lines, and and put in the style of Ryan Reynolds because I find he's
He
hilarious
is, and that's funny,
on the
Pat. I
socials,
love it, and I'm like, oh, this is
and
great.
it creates great posts for me, right? And then sometimes I tweak them, like let's say it's a comment for you, and it spews out like a three paragraph thing. I'm like, no, this is just a comment. Can you cut it down to like 200 or 300 characters or something like that, or whatever it is, and then it'll condense it and I'll tweak it and like, okay, can you add in a couple of emojis and stuff like that? And what turns into a comment that was like, hey, great point, Paul, to like, whatever I post.
Yeah.
And that's been helpful for me. I mean, I don't find my posts are particularly don't get a lot more engagement than they used to, but I find it's more fun for me to create, and it allows me to promote our podcasts a bit more because whenever I publish a podcast, like I have a few steps that I do, like I add them to my email signature and stuff like that. And the writing a LinkedIn post to promote it was always this part I skipped because I hated doing it. Now it allows me to do it, right?
Okay.
Which I love. And so it goes back to like what I was saying before, right? Is like AI won't know what your voice is until we get to the stage of like personal, like Iron Man style, where he's in his suit and his system knows who he is and how to engage and stuff like that. Till we get there, you need to be able to train, quote unquote, the system. So what's your brand voice, right? Or as a salesperson, what's the voice that I would like to mimic, right? Like I like to think of myself as a funny person from time to time. I like to have a funny persona. And so that's the style that resonated with me. You might have might have a different style, and that's okay. But that's how I found the best way to give it style is by using a public figure that I'm sure if you like Steve Jobs a lot, you could say like, can you write it in the style of Steve Jobs, and that would work for you.
And I'm sure that within a couple of years too, you'll probably be able to use it to even to post your LinkedIn videos, right? It'll probably, you'll be able to have a version of AI that'll even mimic your physical self in saying things. So that'll be interesting.
Well,
too.
a contact of mine actually on LinkedIn, he was someone I went to Queens with actually, and we've been professionally kind of mingling in connection for years. He posted something on LinkedIn where he just did a talking head LinkedIn video and then AI dubbed it in French.
I saw that.
It was insane. I commented on it. It probably popped up on your feed.
Yeah.
I want to know what the AI was. I didn't circle back to figure out if I got an answer. I was like, what platform is that? But it was incredible. And that's
But
really
it translated their voice, right?
Right?
Like I saw that one.
Yeah.
I saw that on Twitter, like some Canadian journalist who mainly speaks English.
There's probably been lots of it. Yeah.
He spoke, but then it just made it as though he spoke French, right? It's like a deep fake.
Like it was moving his mouth and stuff.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing.
It was slightly off, but like good enough. But
yeah, it was not off to the point where you're like, oh my God, this is uncomfortable. It was not cringy. It was like, okay, not bad. I was very impressed when I saw it. So I was
yeah.
And like, I'd rather, in terms of digesting content, like, yes, you could argue if that was the CEO of TD doing that, it would be like, that's a little inauthentic. Like, dude, just learn the French and, present it. But in terms of digesting content, it was much easier to watch him with the kind of slightly funny AI mouth than reading subtitles, especially for me as a dyslexic or anyone who's distracted. It's annoying reading subtitles and hard sometimes. And so you can avoid that completely. Which is
Alyssa, is that why you never post on my comments? Because you don't like the subtitles?
No, truly. Like a lot of times I just can't. Like it's too much.
I'm gonna start saying post in the style. Comment in the style of Fab Galando.
They're gonna be, who's that?
You need to tag me and then I'll see them. Otherwise, I don't. I'm terrible.
I know. I'm just ribbing you. I had you guys have the misfortune of having me post coffee. I had a coffee about half an hour ago, so it just makes me super duper energetic mode. So and teasing mode. So I'm just kidding.
That's okay. I did it recently too, in terms of building a sales deck out for a client, or at least a template to give them a guide. And it was really interesting too, because not that I don't know how to build a sales deck, and this was again for more of a CPG company. But when I did it, I said, I'm going in to meet with a new buyer at Walmart. Like, what should my deck include? And it really pumped out some unique slides based on its research and understanding of what matters to Walmart corporately. Which was very cool. So I found it really helpful, even for something like that, just to make a template of a slide deck with key insights about, again, knowing who your prospect is, knowing who you're going after.
Yeah, that's an amazing use case.
One thing I want to ask you guys. So I think I want to make it, because we're saying AI for sales and we're talking about how we're using it, but I want to, I'd like to just address, maybe it's obvious to you, but I want to address, let's say you're a salesperson or a sales leader watching this episode. So what would you say, and I want your opinions on this, and I've got mine too, but I want to hear you guys both first. What would you say, how can a sales leader currently use AI? Obviously, there's the AI that comes with HubSpot, which is obvious within the CRM, helping you write emails, whatnot. But what would you say as a sales leader? What tools would you suggest that they use now immediately to help them with their sales teams? Any ideas?
For the sales leaders?
Yeah, for the sales leaders.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, Alyssa, do you want to hop in? Or do you...
No, you go, Fab, and then I'll go.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of what we just been talking about, I really liked Alyssa's last point about personalizing your sales decks, and I think that's something that, although... there probably won't be that much information about some of your reps online to the point where you can tailor a coaching session to their needs. But, there's some traits that you identify, right, when you're a manager and you see your team. And if you think, how can I coach like a sales, I'm a sales leader looking to coach my new, sales development rep who tends to be a bit more introverted and is afraid to make cold calls. And I'm sure it'll pump out a whole bunch of interesting things that you might not have thought about. And can you help me come up with exercises or ask questions, or, what kind of role plays would be? I think it would be, using it as an assistant is super powerful. I think that's probably where I would start.
So you'd say to the sales leader, use it as your assistant to help you write whatever content that you're doing for your clients directly or for your reps. And I guess to the reps, use it for your emails, use it for your find your voice, right? So Fab is finding the voice. A rep might find his or her voice and use that for emails, right?
I would say also for rep is research, like just now for fun of it, like as we were chatting, I was kind of doing research on a potential client that I'm working on, and it's like, like what are signs that they could use help with their CRM? And there's like, oh, well, are they growing? Are they letting people go? Are they, and it's giving me all these prompts on like potential talking points. I'm like, oh, well, like you mentioned in this blog post, blah, blah, blah. So it helps you condense and find information that can make your outreach very, very relevant
to use your open-ended questions more in a directive way at a certain point in your conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Like is your, you talk a lot about positive user feedback, is your website set up to be able to collect feedback from, like these are conversations that this is something that's important to them because they wrote about it, and I can contextualize my question based off of like, are you set up to do that and stuff? So I think
if I don't want you to use I want you to say, tell me more about.
But that's where I would probably go first as a rep before even helping me write better emails or whatever, is helping me do better research.
Yeah, very good point.
And then, if you want to put an ops hat on, then I would like tie ChatGPT into HubSpot and get some automation in there and help it pull that information directly into HubSpot.
Technical question right now. If I'm a HubSpot user and I want to use ChatGPT, how do I make those two work together? Is there a way? Is there a way of integrating it? Or
there is, but you unfortunately need dev skills at the current moment. Okay. So there's no direct integration.
So there's no simple way. You need to have some. Okay, all right. And Alyssa, what's your take on that?
If I take it, I like that Fabs were good specific examples. My thinking goes a little more because he's got more examples than I do. They're better ones. I think of it more if I'm taking it back a few feet. Um, I think a way for like a mid-sized business owner or an entrepreneur who wants to build an AI and more efficiencies into their sales process and their sales experience would be to look at their holistic customer journey and figure out ways in which they can automate and simplify that experience and improve that experience for their customer. And so if you're doing that exercise and the whole objective is to how can we take more work off our plate and make their experience better, that should be the lens through which you build a customer journey. Once you do that exercise, then you can start to investigate, okay, what kind of tech platform support exists, HubSpot being a big one, that helps efficiencies in this process. And then AI comes into play in the strategic spots within that journey. And as one specific example too, to go Fab's route with some nice specifics, the only one I have to offer is I had an interesting lunch club chat with someone who was building an AI platform that pretty much covered your first round of sales calls. So it did that disqualifier call, it did that qualification call or disqualifying call, it did that preliminary survey. Hey, we're just going to qualify you with an interesting questionnaire to send to our salespeople to follow up with a meeting. Where right now, I think a lot of organizations that are quite small have high quality people spending their time doing that somewhat menial step, or they outsource it overseas to a virtual assistant who sort of does that role, which is a hit or miss in terms of its success, because most likely that person is not a trained salesperson necessarily. So that's a good example where hopefully moving forward, you can even simplify and further automate your sales process with having initial sales calls being done by voice AI, which is kind of cool.
So how far are we away from that? Like,
Fab could probably talk more about that. I don't imagine HubSpot isn't like investigating options there too. You can send out an email, but wouldn't it be better if you actually called someone with a voice?
That'd be awesome. That's what I'm saying. Like, imagine if it could mimic your voice too. You could just sit there, drink your coffee, and have the AI do your cold calls.
That's kind of the technology that he's working on, and it's in its infancy. But you're laughing.
Yeah,
am I off base or on base?
We're going for
it's definitely not a native thing.
In our fat lounge chairs, getting fat, eating bagels and donuts, while our AI avatars are doing everything for us. I love it.
I mean, that's definitely down the road stuff. Is definitely not built in yet. I think we're still at the stage of research and helping you do more of the menial tasks that you were talking about, Alyssa. Like the example I gave earlier, like writing a report description, like what does this report do? We could definitely see how it could be used down the line, and there'll be some misses, right? Like we might try this and realize at some point we do need a human there because there's a real conversation to be had, and the AI might not be able to do it. But that's definitely an interesting use case for sure.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of mid-sized business owners and owners who have a mid-sized team, maybe 10 to 15 people, they're still doing a lot of that work on their own. And if they haven't created a good CRM strategy, I think a lot of them, they don't even know what's available that's table stakes in a lot of ways. Would you agree with that, Fab? Like in terms of not having a good understanding of what existing platforms have to offer them?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted by some false message.
I was just.
You can wrap it.
I was just telling you.
We can wrap it.
I've got a hard stop in 5 minutes. That's all I want to say. But
same here. I have something at noon. But
so if can I summarize a few things that I've learned from you? Obviously, the future of AI is going to be spectacularly fast, and it's probably going to come in faster than we think, and that's amazing. And they'll be able to help us with how we do some menial tasks, like you were saying. But I think even now it's very useful to do menial tasks. And what I really like that what I draw from this is you can still put your own. You choose the spices you want to put in it. So you can put the Ryan Reynolds spice in there. You can put the Steve Jobs spice in there. Like you decide how it's going to look. So it's not a boring sandwich like you were saying before. So you don't have to. It doesn't always have to be the Alyssa, Paul, and Fab spice. It can be you get to go choose from so many more colors to make a palette that's appealing to your client. And then you can play with these different knobs and make it sound good. I do a lot of music, as you guys do. And what I like is in today's world, I can go grab loops and I put them together in a way that's original, but I'm still using loops that are pre-recorded, which is a form of AI. I feel so.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing to me. It's like you're not losing your personality. You're adding to your personality by being able to draw on other things around you to make it interesting and to offer your services or to bring your product out to your clients. That's my conclusion. I don't know what you guys think, but let's hear yours.
You go, Fab?
I thought you were gonna go for it. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think to me, that's it. To me, ultimately, the biggest takeaway of all is like you can't be afraid of it. I mean, I've seen people in the past be afraid of new stuff and not want to try it, or try it out once and like, it doesn't work and forget about it and then moves on. I think that's a mistake. I think there's a big potential there. As a HubSpot consultant, I hear a lot of people are afraid like this is going to take our jobs, right? Like what when say I can build all these complex reports, like what are we left to do? And so by using it, that's how you're able to understand kind of what your space is and what your place is and how you can grow with it. So whether you're in sales or marketing or whatever, I would say use it. Try to figure out use cases where it could help you. Try to, and for me, the biggest prompt was not AI prompt, but the biggest indicator was like, I don't really want to do this, or I don't like doing this. How can I figure out a way to use it to help me out?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, and I think you both used it more specifically in your business, but as of today, you guys just convinced me that I'll be using it a lot more.
And I would say too, as a final note, I think it's important to be creative, and tech is only as good as the human brain behind it, right? So it really can't do things on its own. It needs
For now.
Yes, for now. That's why I'm being nice to it, just in case it takes over. But
no, it's because you're Canadian. We're Quebecers. We're Canadians, but we're not as nice as the rest of Canada. You're just nicer.
I respect my AI, but I think it's important to be creative with it and to think outside the box, and to know that you're still in charge. So you have creative control over how you're utilizing these tools, and to think big with it and have fun.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. I love this session. It was amazing. I don't know. I almost think we need to have a maybe in a couple of months we have to do 2.0 to see how we've evolved with it, because I think it's gonna evolve quickly, and maybe we should do that. Say, well, what's changed in the last 2 months in the way we use AI, and how we managed to help our clients use it too, because I think that's important too.
For sure.
So, thanks. That was great.
Cool.
I thoroughly enjoyed this.
All right, me too. That was fun. Bye, Paul. Bye, Alyssa.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Time.